Okay, today we have lots of vocabulary. I'll try not to be boring because I've already done this and then it deleted my whole video. So this is the second time I'm explaining all of this to you. Anyways, a point is an exact location in space. A point is just written with the picture. It's just a point with a letter beside it. And if we were to name that point, we would just do A. Alright, the next one is a line. A line is a straight path that has no thickness and extends forever in both directions. Okay, so we have a line with an arrow on each end. Those arrows indicate it goes on forever in both directions. And if we had some points on this line, we could name it. We could either name it line AB or line BA. Okay, because there's an arrow on each end, you can name it in any order. However, that is the same line, so that would not be the answer to name two lines, because that really only names one line. A plane is a flat surface that has no thickness and extends forever. We will talk about naming a plane down below. Ray is a part of a line that has one endpoint and extends forever in one direction. So a ray looks like this. It has an endpoint and extends forever in one direction, so there's only one arrow. And if we were to name this, because it has an endpoint, our first letter when we're naming is the endpoint, followed by the letter by the arrow, and we need that notation or picture above it. A line segment is a part of a line array that extends from one endpoint to another. So, sometimes it's just a line with nothing, and sometimes they put the little endpoints on either end. If we were going to name this, because there's no arrows, we can name it EF, or we can name it FE. Okay? So, if there's two arrows, you can name it in any order. If there's no arrows, you can name it in any order. If there's one arrow, you have to name it from the starting point and then by the point by the arrowhead. And congruent is figures that have the same shape and size. So we're going to identify the figures in the diagram below. We're going to identify 3 points. Now 3 points, there's a point, I need a different color so you can actually see it. There's a point here, there's a point here, and there's a point here. And we just put the letters beside them. So E, D, and F. Okay? Now we're naming 2 lines. Now this is a line because it has an arrow on either end. And this is a line because it has an arrow on either end. So we're going to name the red line first, and we just use the 2 points. It can be ED, but remember your notation, or it can be DE. We need 2 lines though, and that only names 1. So now we're going to look at the blue line. And we can do DF or FD. Okay? So we need to remember the line notation over it. Then a plane. A plane, we're going to choose any 3 points not on the same line. Okay? So there are only 3 points on there. So when you name a plane, you write plane first, and then it's E, D, F, or you can write those 3 points in any order. Now, if there was a point here that was G, we could not name that plane EDG because all 3 of those points are on the same line, and it says 3 points not on the same line. We are going to continue identifying figures in a different looking diagram this time. So let's take a look at that. The first thing we want to do is name 3 rays. We want to name the endpoint of the ray first, And we want to remember our notation or our picture above it. So, here we go. We want to go from a point to an arrow. So we have a ray here. We have a ray here. And we have a ray here. Okay? All of those start at a starting point and go towards an arrow. So our blue one starts at M and goes to N. M's our starting point, N's the closest to the arrow. Our red one starts at N as a starting point and goes towards M with the arrow. And our green one starts at M and goes towards O with the arrow. Now we need to name two line segments. So let's erase our colors up here. So we are going to use the endpoints in any order. And we are going to remember to put that above our letters. So we have one line segment here. We have a starting and stopping point. And we have one line segment here because we have a starting and stopping point. So our green is MN or NM. Those are the same line segment. It's not two separate answers. And then the red, we can either write MO or OM. Okay? Identify the line segments that are congruent in the picture. Congruent means from above, or the first page, figures that have the same shape and size. So we are looking at line segments. Now if you'll notice on this, we have one tick mark, two tick marks, two tick marks, three tick marks, three tick marks, three tick marks, and three tick marks. Those tick marks indicate that those lines are the same length. So our red circle with one tick mark shows that those line segments are the same length. So AB is congruent to CD. Okay? Now the ones with two tick marks are blue. We have AC is congruent to BD. And then we look at our green tick marks and we label all those lines. We have, oops, we need our notation up there. EA is congruent to EC, which is congruent to FD, which is congruent to FB. Okay? So we know those are congruent because the ones with one tick mark, the tick marks mean congruency. The same amount of tick marks mean they're the same length. So do your check it out. I would like you to also find two rays, one line segment, and one plane. Okay? So find those things and then come get them checked. But don't be a slacker and not find those extra things.